Okay, guys, and welcome to episode 9 of Ferg's Footy Fanfare. I'm Ned, and joining me, as always, is my great cousin Jay. Jay, how are you doing on this Monday evening?
Good evening, audience. Good evening, Ed. I'm fantastic. And yourself, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. So I suppose we'll dive straight into it with just some pretty much breaking news within the last half an hour that Richmond's Tom Lynch has been cleared of striking and will be free to play against the West Coast Eagles after some quite heavy bashing from the media over the past fortnight for some off-the-ball antics. So, Jay, I'll get your opinion first and then I'll go through what was sort of said by the tribunal and what Richmond and Tom argued. So what's your thoughts on this?
Well, firstly, I think it was interesting that the tribunal only deliberated for 20 minutes. That makes it seem as if it was a pretty clear-cut case for them. I would have been disappointed to see Tom Lynch get suspended over that incident, considering out of his recent track record in the last 4 or 5 weeks he's had. That is the slightest hit that he's had, the one with the least amount of intent or kind of, vigor behind it. I haven't heard the entire outcome, but I'm assuming that that's his last chance and that if it happens again, he'd be copying a week. So personally, I think that between the Witherden accident and what was the second one that he was in?
Sam Collins.
Yeah, the Collins. I think that those two should have equated to a week, but the one on Hurley, I would have been surprised if that was able to add anything to their case.
Yeah, so that's my initial thought is that maybe if you had reversed the 2 weeks around and had the Hurley incident happen last week and the Collins incident happen this week, he'd probably receive a week, I'd feel. But I feel that one, yes, was the lesser, and I don't think you could charge him on that.
No, that's exactly right.
So the AFL labelled it as intentional high contact with low impact, which would result in a 1-week suspension. Richmond argued that, what did I say here? That it did not define as a strike, and Lynch had no intention of high contact. And the medical report from Hurley, obviously he played on. And then there was also the playing at the hand thing that led into that. And then Tom and Richmond argued the case that he was actually aiming at the chest.
Right. Yeah, it did look unintentional straight away. It looked like one of those ones that was aiming for the chest and kind of just slipped up in towards that lower jaw.
Well, there was, it didn't look like much of a punching action at all. It just looked like, a bit of a push away with the forearm. I didn't think it was any sort of punching action at all.
In terms of what this does for, how people react to Tom Lynch, in particular his direct opponent, I think that they're going to use it as fuel, In the past couple of weeks in particular, he's had a very short fuse. I'd be very surprised this week if you didn't have the likes of McGovern in particular and Barras. I know that can get a little bit lippy as well in the back line. If they try and, just egg him on a little bit.
I think, yeah, definitely. To take any advantage that Lynch has. But I think it also comes down to his teammates. I think his teammates have got to stand up and possibly, just give him a bump and say, Tom, you don't have to do anything. We got your back. Just go fly for the ball and we'll help you out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now I'll go over to another piece of news that we heard throughout the week. Cam McCarthy and the Fremantle Dockers have mutually agreed to terminate his contract effective immediately. There was also speculation at one stage that he was planning to make a move over to an AFL club, not any one in particular, but throughout the season. However, that's been rejected by the AFL. So where do you see Cam McCarthy in the future now? Obviously started his career at GWS, I believe, and had a stint in Fremantle. So where to for him now?
I think he's a very capable player. I really like Cam McCarthy. I think, he could be a valuable asset. I don't know where. without just thinking off the top of my head where he'd fit in. Like even maybe a Gold Coast might help. Gold Coast looking to try and improve their list. Throwing offers at players for other clubs. Nathan Broad. Get out. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's definitely AFL standard. It's just whatever he's wanting, does someone want to meet that demand, or can they reach a happy medium? But I think he's a capable AFL player.
Absolutely. You look at his junior career, pick number 14. He's played 70 games. He's 25 years old, so he's in prime physical shape. To be honest, I think that he's a walk-in at quite a few clubs that are struggling to find some forwards at the moment. Perhaps even somewhere like Sydney in the first place. I'm not too sure, obviously, of his intentions, whether he'd like to go back to Sydney. Obviously, he came to Fremantle, requesting a trade there to be closer to home. But, I think he's definitely got the potential and capabilities to be a walk-in starting forward for some clubs in the AFL.
St Kilda?
Not just yet. Well, we can get to that right now because this one is brought to you by your mate, Tyler Buchanan, asking us to do a review or our opinions on Paddy McCartan's future.
Yeah, it looks pretty grim, doesn't it? He wants to go around, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, him and St Kilda came to an agreement last year that he'd spend this season off their list, focusing on getting his body right and hopefully, not suffering from some of those long-term concussion symptoms he's become victim to. There has been talk about him being picked up as a rookie next year and going through that process. I have been hearing good things in terms of his rehabilitation, but if that's the case, it might be another club might have a swoop at him as well. Might be able to offer him a bit more security, and that might just be what he enjoys. So hopefully he can get going. He was showing glimpses before he became riddled with concussion problems, so it'd be good to see him get a crack.
Yeah, he's a more than capable player. Yeah, he's just one of those fellas that has just been so unlucky with concussions. But, like I said, he's a very capable player. But, yeah, is it someone that St Kilda looking to invest in, especially when you guys already have Membry and Kent, and you also have what's your ruckman's name?
King Marshall.
Oh, yeah, you have King as well. Yep. Yeah. Marshall and also Paddy Ryder. So you're not really short in the big man stocks.
Yeah, I guess that's potentially what it comes down to, whether there is a club that's able to swoop in and say, we'll be able to offer you game time, week in, week out, as long as you're fit, you're playing. So,
well, that's the thing. There could be potential of Taylor Walker not being in Adelaide next year. So
I did see that.
Does that create something, an opening for McCartan? And even Brisbane, I still reckon they're lacking a real genuine good key forward. And possibly North Melbourne if Ben Brown decides to depart.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, I guess the market's never going to be saturated with key forwards. It's ideal for them to hop on and do something about it. Sorry about that, guys. Just a slight technical issue. Ned, there's also some breaking news today regarding the second tier for VFL and NEAFL.
Yeah, so the two leagues are going to merge. I think it must be more so with the AFL-affiliated clubs out of the NEAFL. So that would involve Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney and Greater Western Sydney. So the options that are given is field a standalone or merge with a club already present, or they can also spread their list across multiple clubs.
Yeah. Given the unique circumstances, I think it's a great idea and potentially one that they could look into in the future, not necessarily having a whole season based around the two states playing against each other, but perhaps some kind of, a form of state of origin within the second tier where you get the best teams that have performed in their states, travelling in-state, knocking it out with the best.
I personally think it's going to be only a better thing for the second tier of football. VFL is probably the strongest league out of the state league second tier comps. NEAFL is probably the weakest. So all it is going to do is just increase the standard, and it'll probably help out these clubs coming across.
It would be very interesting to see how the Brisbane reserves go against, powerhouses in the VFL, considering that Brisbane, I think they went undefeated last season in their reserves in the NEAFL.
Yeah, they dominated the NEAFL last year.
So that would be interesting. Round 13 review. I know that we've currently got one game playing at the moment.
North Melbourne up by 7.
That's right. 10 minutes into the first. We'll start with Friday night's game, Gold Coast versus Carlton. Now, did you watch this?
Yeah, in bits and pieces. Not watched the whole thing. But yeah, I watched a fair bit of it.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to lie. I watched the first quarter and then changed the channel. I thought skill level was poor. Carlton were good, were better. I thought Gold Coast were really, really poor, especially after I put my bloody life on the line and gave them like a B rating last week. So they've let me down, and they let me down real bad. They got absolutely slaughtered in the end. It was 7 scoring shots to 25 in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty big win by Carlton.
That's right. They're lucky that margin of 33 wasn't any more.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on before we go on? What are your thoughts on having Dreamtime in Darwin as an annual game?
I can see the potential in it, but I can't see it with the capacity, especially where the AFL, all the losses that they're making at the moment, that they're really going to need games like the Dreamtime and like Anzac Eve, Anzac Day and all that to really pick them up financially. I don't mind the idea, but I just think with the capacity and all that of TIO, maybe even do it once every 3 years or something. But I can't see them doing it every year just from a financial point of view, especially where the AFL are at the moment financially.
It is a good point you raise about capacity, but I think that it would be a great idea to have maybe a tradition with 2 other teams playing at Dreamtime in Darwin, so that way you're able to keep Essendon and Richmond at Dreamtime at the G, which has now become a lock-in event for many people to celebrate Indigenous heritage and traditions. But perhaps to do it in Darwin as well would also be a good idea. But it is a very good point you raised with the capacity and potential revenue. But you'd like to think that maybe that's the one time in a season that the AFL doesn't care so much about making money.
Yeah. Look, I think if the capacity of the ground was somewhere around 40,000, it would probably be okay. I'd be happy with it as a Richmond supporter. But when you're only getting like 20,000 people there, it doesn't feel as big as what the actual event is.
Yeah. Saturday afternoon, we had the Doggies defeating Melbourne at Metricon Stadium. Thoughts on that one?
Doggies is way too good. I did watch a fair bit of it. It was Melbourne, when they don't have the ball, don't work hard enough. That's how I looked at it. Melbourne are good when they have the ball, but when they don't have the ball, they're just a shambles. Bulldogs are able to get around them pretty easy. And Melbourne coming out of defence were just hacking the ball out, playing it into players like Jason Johannisen and Caleb Daniel, and it was pretty much a walk in the park for Footscray.
Yeah, that's it. I also watched this game, and it looked like it was going to heat up and become a really good game in the back half. But then Dogs flexed their muscles. Two very, when they're at their best, very potent midfields. And like you said, the Dogs were just classier and they wanted it a bit more. So I guess that's the issue with Melbourne, is that they switch off and they rely so much on having that pressure to get the ball out and then start moving it quickly. If it's not there in the midfield, then they're going to really struggle. But Max Gawn, I believe, is in next week. He's almost a lock.
Oh, absolutely. Best ruckman in the comp.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see whether he's back to 100% fitness or whether they might rush him in, considering I think they're one loss away from being out of finals contention, to be completely honest.
They have a game in hand, though.
Yeah, so they're 2 points behind. I take that back. They're 2 points behind Collingwood with the same amount of games played. However, Collingwood's playing at the moment.
So if Collingwood, if they lose and drop percentage, that'll be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that saves Collingwood is the draw that they had with the Tigers at the moment. So Melbourne's already got it 8% better than Collingwood. So it will be interesting. They'll have to play well next week.
And just as you're saying that, North Melbourne are having a shot on goal at the moment. And he has slotted it.
Jeez.
So North Melbourne 2-1-13, Collingwood 0-2 behinds.
I reckon we'll have to think about doing that if he gets to finals or something. We might have to go live and do a little bit of broadcasting to the fans.
Well, hopefully we're at the pubs by then, so we don't.
Oh boy, I hope so. Yeah, be able to meet up face to face. Next game, Port Adelaide v Hawthorn. Actually, ended up being quite a good game. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think the Clarkson factor really came in there. Yeah, Hawthorn actually gained a lot of respect for Hawthorn out of that game. I thought they played quite well and gave themselves every chance to win. Obviously, Port Adelaide over in Adelaide, especially with the very dominant crowd over there, is always a tough ask. And I would have expected Hawthorn to get blown out of the water, but I thought they held their own quite well.
Yeah, 100% agree. It helped that they were able to kick away real early. I think especially when you're playing over in Adelaide, you want to get off to a flying start, because once the crowd gets up and about, it looks like it'd be a horrible place to come over and travel and then try and play against the crowd and the players. But in the end, Port Adelaide just that little bit too good. I guess, showing why they're top 4 quality at the moment. Well, yeah, they're 6 points clear of 5th place. So who do they have next week? Sydney. So, yeah. Next game was the Dreamtime fixture. We had Essendon losing to your mob by 12 points. How did you find that?
Yeah. Richmond really dominated that first quarter. And I felt that that it probably should have been around a 5-goal victory based on all the stats and just watching it in general play. Essendon played well, but Richmond were always able to respond.
Yeah, I think I've already mentioned it once with the Carlton Gold Coast game, but 12, win by 12 points, had 12 more scoring shots on any other day, really, especially with the conditions. I feel like it's quite a significant victory to the Tigers. Do you have your best on for the Tigers, Shai Bolton?
Yeah, I thought Dustin Martin was best on ground personally. But I think Shai Bolton will be Richmond's best and fairest this year at this point in time. I think he's having an absolute rippy year with the absence of Shane Edwards. So, yeah, I've really liked Shai Bolton, especially him in the midfield. He just seems to always have that time and space, and he's always able to, when he does give the ball off, he puts someone else in a better position.
Fremantle and Sydney. Now, I'm assuming that you didn't get a chance to watch this one.
Nah, I watched it in bits and pieces. I think the scores are pretty well locked when I tuned in because it would have been half-time in the Dreamtime game. And pretty scrappy game, but apparently Luke Ryan had an absolute blinder. I did see some of the end of it, and it looked pretty comfortable for Fremantle in the end.
Well, I was just about to say, when their backline's playing really well, they're going to become really formidable and really difficult to score against. Obviously, Sydney only managed to score 19, which I learned was their lowest score since they moved to Sydney.
Yeah, right.
And to kick 2 goals, yeah, they really struggled throughout, and that was pretty much due to the aerial dominance of Ryan, and then also their younger players in the back line like Chera, and you had Sarong running through there as well, who's been playing real well.
So is Luke Ryan in all Australian talks? Like, do you reckon he could make the squad, like the squad of 40?
It's a really good question. I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. Although when you start talking about that kind of key intercept full backman, I think there's a lot of others that you can pick just based on, you got like Haynes, Harris Andrews, they're two that come to mind straight away. And then you got Grimes. And,
Noah Bolter.
Noah Bolter, behave. Jeez. But yeah, no. He's when he's playing well, he's in all Australian form. But I guess just getting over a consistent basis. And I'm pretty sure he's been injured for a period this year as well.
Yeah, I think he has. But I still think if you're getting a best on ground performance as a key defender, defenders don't usually get that much recognition. Usually look towards a midfielder or potentially a forward that generally gets that recognition. So the fact that he's getting recognition like that, you never know.
Yeah, no, that's right. Adelaide, Geelong in Texas, 250th?
200th, I think.
200th.
Yeah. I did watch this in bits and pieces. I thought the Crows really held their own. I think they played three good quarters. And then Geelong, just obviously just being the more superior side, really flexed their muscles in that fourth quarter. But I don't think Adelaide fans would have been very disappointed in that performance. I think they would have been quite proud of that because Geelong are one of those, what we think is a real premiership frontier. And, Adelaide really held their keep and really held Geelong accountable.
That's right. I think if you asked an Adelaide fan, would you take a look at the end of 5 goals? It's probably it doesn't look as good as it should. But if you asked an Adelaide fan and said, would you take a 28-point loss against Geelong where you're competitive for 3 quarters? I think they would. They really brought it up to them, but there was no real periods of dominance. It always looked like Geelong always had it contained, even in the last quarter when I think it was still 9 points, the margin with about 7 minutes to go. They really only kicked away in the last 5 minutes. So, but it never looked too dangerous for them. Sunday Arvo, Vegas versus the Saints. Brisbane in a tight one.
I thought St Kilda were very unlucky not to win this one. And I think they made in finals. I think St Kilda will notch them. I'm still not sold on Brisbane, and I said this to you last year.
That is true. I will vouch for that. Yeah, I will vouch.
I can't see Brisbane winning a premiership. Just especially this, if they get their scoreboard efficiency right, they'll be in the thereabouts. But they just butcher the ball too much for mine. They just don't have that poise that the teams that have won premierships over the last 5 years have.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something you develop just once players start getting a bit more relaxed in the system, a bit more confident, once they start notching up that 100 games and all that. It beats me. Yeah.
I think it's the quality of ball. And remember, we watched Richmond St Kilda, and St Kilda beat Richmond, and St Kilda were getting walking goals. And you watch Richmond through 2017 and even, through the latest stage of last year, they were just getting easy goals. And, the better quality shots that you get, the more likely you're going to kick them. And watching Brisbane-Richmond a few weeks ago, Brisbane were getting him, 40 out on a 45 and all that. They weren't getting easy looks, so therefore they weren't nailing their shots.
Yeah, I thought this game was really in the first 3 quarters, based on that, you probably had Brisbane up by 5 goals, but, St Kilda should have won the game based on their last quarter. They played really, really well and kept Brisbane to a point, and they kicked 1 goal for or something. I might be a bit quick on the trigger here, but I'm going Jack Steele he's definitely going to be in the 40 for All Australian, and I think he's pressing his case really well for an All Australian tilt.
Dan Butler, best and fairest, or Jack Steele?
It's really interesting because he's probably had the biggest impression on the clubs from last year, but in terms of just the absolute, like the value that Jack Steele is bringing to St Kilda at the moment, it's dominant. You know, he didn't play on Lachie Neale. They had Seb Ross tag Lachie Neale, but it's gotten to a stage now where he's too good of a midfielder to just be tagging. He needs to go and win his own ball now. So, and I think that this game in particular was the shift, because any other time he would have gone to Lachie Neale.
I think he's a more than capable player. I don't think he should be a tagger. I think he's a very quality player.
Yeah, and Seb Ross did a really good job on Lachie Neale as well. So perhaps that's something they'll start to look at in the upcoming weeks if they come up against any clubs that require it. They might think of leaving Steele out on his own and then allowing Ross to tag. And then for the final game, finish game that is, we've got West Coast versus the Giants, which actually ended up being a lot closer than it once again should have been.
Yeah, GWS really held West Coast accountable, I felt. And, they probably nearly could have won. I think West Coast were in control of the game for a lot of it, but GWS just sort of hung in there. And I thought they did pretty well considering playing West Coast to the flag favourites at the moment. And, over there, playing them over there is just an absolute mission. So I think GWS really held their own, especially not being, in great form.
Yeah. Well, I guess, now more than ever, it's crunch time for GWS. They've got Fremantle this week. They need a result just as well. They're in that bunch that's sitting 2 points behind Collingwood at this stage. I'm not too sure if GWS, have they played Melbourne yet or Carlton? I don't think they've played either of them.
Nah, I don't think so.
So that will be really interesting if you get them all around the same period. Yeah. So, they've got Carlton and Melbourne in the next 4 weeks.
So, quite winnable games. I still think they could probably sneak into the 8, I think, with the quality they got, but they're just making it difficult for themselves.
Yeah, they are shooting themselves in the foot. All right, well, we'll quickly go through next round. I know that we haven't spoken about our tips, so we'll have a quick look at them. Now, this is the start of the second Festival of Footy. Need I remind you, Nettie? We've got 19 games in 20 days, I think.
What are you doing?
Nice. I don't know. I've been on and off of the rugby a bit, so.
Well, we'll start with the first game. It's on Thursday night. We've got Hawthorn Essendon.
Are we just giving our blank tips now for it?
Yeah, we'll just give blank tips and we'll change them if we need to.
Okay, so Hawthorn Essendon, did you say?
Correct.
Where at?
It is at Adelaide Oval. It's a twilight game if you want to know, if one side might deal with the sun a bit better.
Geez. I'm actually liking Hawthorn in this one. I think the way Hawthorn played last week, I think I reckon they could win that one.
Okay, well, that's our first. I'm going to go Essendon, only because I feel like they're 4 points behind, but they've still got a mathematical chance at least. It was very interesting to hear John Worsfold throughout the week plead the fans for patience, saying that they're very close to building a really good list. And I don't know, I feel like that would frustrate me if I was an Essendon supporter. How long is too long with all of this?
Well, weren't they supposed to be the next best thing since sliced bread about 2 years ago? And
yeah, well, I'm pretty sure you and I are going to...
We have not seen many results.
No, that's it. And you and I are actually going to an event in a couple of weeks' time, aren't we?
Yeah, a couple of... I think it's the start of next year.
Oh, okay.
So Essendon celebration party, 6,000 days without winning a final. It's going to be a ripper party.
It will. I'm going to have to tune in and make sure I'm there with a couple of froths myself. It'll be good.
It'll be great day for football.
Richmond West Coast, Metricon 7:10.
West Coast. It's hard to go past the Eagles at the moment. They're playing some really good football. I just don't think Richmond will be up to it at this point. I think maybe with the stocks back, Richmond could challenge them, but I think West Coast.
Yeah, once again, I'm going to go Richmond. Pretty much not solely, because I do think that Richmond at their best is better than West Coast, but it's away from Perth. I reckon I reckon these old demons from 3 years ago really, I reckon they're back in their heads.
Fair enough.
Friday night, we've got the Dogs and Cats at Metricon Stadium.
Geelong.
Yeah, I'm going to tip Geelong as well. Although I think the Doggies will be able to bring it up to them at the best. And
yeah, if they play their best,
it'll be a really good game if they're both playing their best footy, because I think that they're both capable.
Yeah.
Maybe your mate Josh Bruce will have to start getting on track. He's been out of form a bit for a few weeks now.
Not my fucking mate.
Port Adelaide, Sydney at Adelaide Oval.
Port Adelaide.
Yeah, going to have to go Port there, considering Sydney's kicking woes. Maybe they'd go with getting the other McCartan brother up there, tall forward.
Yeah, well, Buddy Franklin's in a bit of strife.
Well, he's been ruled out for the season now. They're not going to try and bring him back in any quicker. A Fremantle GWS.
GWS.
Yeah, I agree as well. Fremantle have been playing good football in the last couple of weeks, competitive football, but GWS have a bit more to play for. They've got more on the line at the moment. Melbourne St Kilda. This will break you.
Sorry. St Kilda.
Yes. Now, those that know me, dear, know that this tends to be a bit of a rivalry game between the Saints and Melbourne. So, ideally, hope that the Saints will win. But if St Kilda do lose, then they're back into contention with just making the 8. So, it's important for them to get the win as well. Carlton Collingwood at the Gabba.
Ooh. Carlton.
Interesting.
Steel side bottom leaves the side as of tonight.
Yep. I didn't even know. I thought that he'd already left. But yeah. No, I'm going to go Collingwood, and it's a bit naive, but I don't know. I think just the maturity of their squad, once again, need to get a win. So do Carlton. I think that Collingwood will manage to get the job done. And last game for that week, considering Adelaide and Brisbane have byes, Gold Coast v North at Metricon.
Gold Coast. I think North have been playing well, but I think at Metricon, I think Gold Coast will rise to the occasion.
It'll be a good test for Gold Coast, considering how poor they were in their last game, where the Stewie Dew revs them up and whether they can get back on the horse. I'm going to tip Gold Coast as well.
Well, you're not going to have to worry about North Melbourne fans impeding on that because there are no North Melbourne fans.
Yeah, I mean, but if the borders were open anyway, they'd be able to whip them in a dibby van or something.
Shout out to all our North Melbourne fans if we have any.
Yeah, that's it. Minusing it. I'm trying to think.
I'm North tonight.
I don't really know anyone that goes for North Melbourne, do I? I know my old PE teacher used to go for North.
It's because no one goes for North. 25 members, mate, and they're still kicking.
All right, well, that's going to do us for tonight. Thanks for having me, Ned. It's been awesome, as per usual.
Always a pleasure, mate.
That's it. And just we'll get this little segment in. You're telling me that the Knights are mathematically guaranteed finals if they win this week.
Yeah, so it's pretty much going to be a mathematical guarantee. So out of their last, I think there's 5 games to go, they have to win 2 to be an absolute certainty. But a win this week against the New Zealand Warriors and the Newcastle Knights will be playing finals for the first time in 7 years, baby.
Holy moly. Goodness gracious me. Boy, oh boy, wowee. And
See the Storm in finals.
Yeah, and on that note, we'll see you later. Catch you guys.
Catches.